because they have subcommittees of, they just have,
No,
I think they'll give us the business school, the business people are involved in it.
Welcome everyone to our November 4th, 2025 board meeting. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, quick housekeeping item. As part of our ongoing commitment to inclusive community engagement, those joining virtually can now email questions and comments to swrboemeeting@k12.ny.us for inclusion during our second public comment period. Residents wishing to make comments or raise questions shall sign up with the district clerk and state their name, address, and topic. Public discussion is prohibited on matters relating to staff and students at which their reputation, privacy, or rights to due process or the rights of others to due process could be in some way violated. All comments should be directed to the board president or vice president. The board vice president may choose to respond to comments or refer to them to the superintendent or board members for reply or for consideration and later response. All comments should always be respectful, non-defamatory, and should maintain a level of decorum appropriate for a meeting of a public body. Okay, for the approval of agenda, can I have a motion? Katie, second Henry. Questions? All in favor? 7-0. Six. Okay. Next up, superintendent's report. Mr. Poole.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Welcome, everyone. For the first part of my report, as usual, I'm going to turn it over to our fabulous student ex officio trustees.
Thank you. So for today, congrats to the girls cross-country team for placing first at Section 11, fresh/sophomore invitational last Friday. Congratulations to Spencer Lee for earning a spot at state qualifying this Friday. And congratulations to Shoreham-Wading River's varsity game day cheerleading team for clinching a spot in the New York State Championship by coming in first place in the Section 11 county championships. The team will be heading up to states to compete this Sunday.
Middle school early winter sports begin November 10th. There are over 120 student athletes registered to try out at this time. High school winter season begins November 17th. There are 129 student athletes registered for tryouts. Reminder that the first quarter will end this Friday, November 7th.
The WHAM Holiday Craft Fair is this Saturday and will start at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Wading River School. School will be closed on Veterans Day next Tuesday, and the high school fall music concert is Wednesday, November 12th. I hope you come and watch.
Great. Well, thank you very much, ex officio student trustees. So on to a few other happenings across the school district. On November 1st, Rohan Murphy, a presenter who lost both legs at birth, spoke to our 8th grade students. His goal is to motivate youth through his words and actions and share his life stories. I know it was students who were well engaged by his presentation and his tale of adversity, dedication, and living life with a purpose. Over at Wading River, students and Mrs. Levonick and Mrs. Collins' class helped create bridges to hold small pumpkin-shaped items as part of a special Halloween-themed STEAM activity. The winning design contained a multitude of triangular supports. Candy buyback was launched at Wading River School yesterday. I hear they collected 100 pounds of candy, and that is on its way overseas right now to troops. The Wading River Blood Drive will take place on Thursday, November 6th. Thank you to our PTA for hosting that from 3:30 to 7:30 p.m. High school students will be volunteering there, and all are welcome to give the gift of life. And over at Miller Avenue held its annual costume parade on October 31st. It was a beautiful day for families and students. Jester Jim will be visiting Miller Avenue on November 5th for 2 fun-filled assemblies. I'm going to have to add that to my calendar. Thanks, Jim. Are you sure it's not you? No. Our next Wildcat with Character Assembly will be held on Friday, November 7th, where they will celebrate their students that displayed the October character trait of kindness. Just an update on the high school gym. Repairs are completed. Congratulations to all. A great project. The gym will be open on November 10th. I'm looking forward to sharing some photos and an update with the community shortly. It really does look amazing. I want to thank our phys ed teachers at the high school who, despite the challenges this fall, ensured that phys ed classes were engaging. Just this past week, I went through the physical education class. They were holding it in the fitness center. They had ping pong tables in the middle. Students were either working out or rotating into ping pong. A lot of student engagement and exercise, so thank you to them for holding down the PE program until the gym was back open. Congratulations to two of our amazing Wading River teachers who I just mentioned, Ms. Levonick and Ms. Collins. They were noted in Newsday in their Teacher Spotlight series, and they were spotlighted for their work and their leadership on writing a curriculum on Long Island for social studies for the region, as well as their exceptional co-teaching skills in an integrated classroom. Congratulations to the high school for being, again, annually recognized as the best high school by U.S. News and World Report. Of note, the high school is in the top 10% in the nation for college readiness indicators and college curriculum breadth, which is aligned to our strategic plan to continue to grow those areas for students. Today was our Superintendent's Conference Day. I want to thank Mr. Meinster, all of our instructional staff and teachers and clerical for putting together a great day of professional development. There were over 50 different sessions, training on instructional platforms, content area standards, CPR, AED, crisis prevention, screen use and developing brain impacts, National School Lunch Program implementation training for food service staff. I'm not going to read all 50, but it was a great day of training for everyone, and we do use that day wisely. So, and then finally, on tonight's agenda, there is a student performance summary report as our annual fall presentation on how did students perform last year on some academic assessments. And thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Poole, and thanks, Riley, Gianna, and Ray. Next up, opportunity for board members. Anything? Okay. And we can jump to reports and reviews. So I'll invite Mr. Meinster up to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, as always, for the opportunity to share the goings-on with regard to curriculum instruction assessment in our programs here. Tonight, I have the pleasure of sharing with you outcomes that run from our K-12 programs for our students through the 24-25 school year. And I will be joined tonight by our Director of Humanities, Ms. Wallbauer, our Director of STEM, Dr. Policelli, and our Director of PPS and Special Education, Ms. Von Eschen, who will share out on each of their respective areas as far as it pertains to our students' performance this year. I am incredibly proud of everyone's work in the district. That goes right from our district office staff and the support that I get from the team here in our cabinet and from Mr. Poole and from every one of you on the board for all the work that we do, right to our administrative team and down to our teachers and all the great work that they do with our kids that result in what you're going to be able to see here tonight. So jumping right in, these are the different assessment measures that we will be going through over the course of this presentation, starting with our grade 3 through 8 state assessment results in ELA, math, and science. That will then move into and be combined with our other K-8 measure, which is our iReady diagnostic. And we'll follow that up by looking at some of the results from the Regents exams from this past June. And then we'll take a look at our college level and commencement level assessments, the AP tests, SAT, ACT, and then an overview of our graduation outcomes for the past school year. We have used all of this data in conjunction with everything else that we have been able to pull together through our Curriculum Development Committee to develop the goals and the focus areas for our work this school year. I did present on that back on September 29th, and the curriculum instruction assessment goals for this year are a direct reflection of the data that we'll be talking about here tonight. So I am going to jump into, well, not me, but I am going to invite Mrs. Wallbauer and then Dr. Policelli to come up and to guide us through the outcomes for our K-8 measures. That would be, again, the state assessments and the iReady diagnostics, and to give you some of the key findings and takeaways from the performance of our students. So with that, I would invite... Oh, sorry, yep, one more before we get to that. Generically, we do continue to see, with regard to the 3 through 8 assessments, a high degree of participation opting out from those assessments. It does improve each year. As you can see, for the last 5 years, we've gone from a 19% participation rate up to now 39%. So we do have roughly 40% of our students that do take part in these assessments. So we are going to share the data for that. They do represent a relatively general cross-section of our students, so there's some information to be taken from that. But again, that information is limited to some degree by the fact that over 50% of our students are not involved in these assessments. And with that, I will now turn it over.
Can I ask you a question?
Sorry, go ahead.
Why do you think we've seen a 20% increase over the last 5 years?
A lot of that is due pretty much to a change in culture, I would say, and that's not just here, that's basically statewide, with an understanding that with the change of the standards and alignment with the next generation standards, there generally has been an increased sense that there is some value to be gained from these assessments, where that was not quite the case in the past. Also, the state did make a transition to releasing more of the items from these tests, and that is what does give it value and validity to us. It's the reason why the Regents exams are such a valuable tool for us to use. We are able to look at all of the questions on the Regents exam to see exactly how students did, where they had their difficulties, and use that data to inform instruction. They've released an increasing amount of those questions from the 3 through 8, and that, to me, is one of the factors that helps make it more valuable, and I think that that's what we're also seeing a trend toward. But still, we are still seeing more than half of our families.
Is there a plan to promote this in the future, to see this?
We always encourage our students to take these tests. We'll use the data that we have from them. They do have value. I will say right here at the podium, I would strongly encourage any parent who feels that their student should not be taking this to reconsider that decision. There is value to be had there. We do use it as a measure of student performance and growth in ELA and math when we have the data to use. And obviously, the more information we can have that tells us where a child is performing, the better that is for us when we look at seeing how we can best support their journey and their work going forward. And with that, I am going to turn the podium to Mrs. Wallbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Meinster. So, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to highlight the humanities assessment data across the district. I'm pleased and proud to share these results and a little bit about how we use the data to inform our curriculum planning and our decision making. As curriculum directors, we work closely with the teachers and the principals, and they are a very important part of the success of our programs, our students, and our district. Here on this slide, you will see the grades 3 through 8 ELA results, which come from a sampling of students at each grade level. As you can see, the overall results have been consistent from year to year. Even more than looking at one's grade levels results year to year, it's also important to look at cohort results, kind of on the diagonal. For example, you can see that the 2023 grade 3 cohort, if they were the same general group taking it in 24 as 4th graders, and then in 2025 as 5th graders, you would see that their growth goes from 46 proficiency to 63 proficiency to 70% proficiency. A very nice upwards trajectory. So the key findings for the 3 through 8 ELA, as you can see here, we are trending up in the participation rates, but like Mr. Meinster said, still with so few students taking the exams, we don't rely only on those ELA exams alone to inform our curriculum instruction and our decision making. Only 27% of this past junior class took the grade 8 ELA in 2022, attaining a 78% proficiency on that measure. But yet that same cohort of students attained a 97% passing rate on the June 2025 ELA Regents. So very nice to see that growth over time. For monitoring students' growth and skill development at all grade levels, we rely on multiple assessment measures. Our MTSS plan that is in development reflects that, as well as the very strategic and detailed approach that we take to review data collaboratively in order to target those who may need additional support. Finally, it is important to note that our ELA scores exceed the state scores by a little over 10%. And just in the last couple of days, we received the regional comparisons from BOCES, and for ELA, we far exceed the regional scores by almost 18%, with our highest percentages at the middle school ELA level, a focus of our literacy curriculum work in recent years. So wonderful results there, and good to see how we are, and our professional development and curriculum efforts are having a very positive effect and impact. Okay, now on to the reading instructional diagnostics. So to help inform student progress in math and reading, we continue to provide instructional diagnostics in these subjects for our students. I will be speaking to the iReady reading diagnostic data for grades K to 8. So the charts on this slide and the following slides reflect movement of our students between the 3 tiers of performance from the start of the 24-25 school year to the end of the school year based on their iReady reading diagnostic. Students in Tier 1, which is the green, are considered to be meeting grade level standards without the need for any of our classroom supplemental instruction or support. Students in Tier 2, which is the yellow, are those not fully meeting grade level standards who may benefit from supplemental instruction from their classroom teacher and possibly out-of-class academic intervention. Students falling into Tier 3 in the red are considered to be performing well below grade level standards and in need of supplemental instructional support from both the classroom teacher and a reading specialist. The iReady diagnostic is administered to all of our generally assessed students. Those who tend to perform below or well below grade level on this measure are typically those already receiving a high level of intervention and sometimes even special ed services. Here on this slide, you can see that at the K to 8 level, 84% of our students finish the 24-25 school year in Tier 1, with an overall 2% increase in students moving up to Tier 1 between the start and conclusion of the school year. The bottom triangles represent the tier-to-tier movement that takes place between diagnostics and through our MTSS process. Through a very systematic collaborative review of the iReady data as well as other measures, we see an overall positive trend in students' tier movement. Okay, now to the building level. So at Miller Avenue, as is typical, we see the greatest degree of movement of students into Tier 1 over the course of the school year, while our little ones are honing those very early literacy skills. For the 24-25 school year, this is reflected by an 11% increase in students at the Tier 1 level, along with a 2% decrease of students ending the year in Tier 2 and a 10% decrease of students ending the year at Tier 3. So again, very strong movement there. Similar to Miller Avenue, our Wading River students are also making strong reading gains. Looking at the lower triangles throughout the course of the 24-25 school year, you can see that there was a slight drop in the Tier 1, but still an impressive 88% at that level, not in need of any additional support. Okay, again, that's the green. There was a slight increase in the Tier 2 placements, but a number of students who moved out of Tier 3 with an overall reduction of Tier 3 students by 2%. So again, very good results and movement. By the time our students reach the middle school, movement between tiers becomes less frequent, with most students in Tiers 2 and 3 receiving either AIS pull-out support and or special education services. Overall, 85% of middle school students placed on or above grade level on the iReady reading diagnostic by the conclusion of the 24-25 school year, typical of the statistical norm for this age group. So they performed, again, quite well and made good movement. So what are the key findings from our reading diagnostics? Well, that's a good question. Overall, our students are performing at a high level of reading proficiency, with the majority of them falling into the Tier 1 level and a much smaller percentage falling into the Tiers 2 and 3, where they would require some sort of additional support. While the iReady is a good overall temperature check on students' literacy skill development, we use many other measures throughout the school year and in between the diagnostics to assess and monitor student growth. We find these diagnostics and all data analysis to be beneficial, especially when we can see patterns. The last few years, we have focused on vocabulary instruction, as that was one of our lower rated skills years ago. More recently, the data is showing us that in just about all grade levels, we are seeing the vocabulary domain measured by the iReady diagnostic continue to grow in its percent of proficiency. Just today, during one of the conference day workshops, one of our grade 9 English teachers shared that her first skills pre-assessment showed a similar result, the vocabulary domain being one of the consistently higher skills among the 9th grade students. This is a great example of how we are using these diagnostic assessments in our MTSS plan to target areas of need and then to put action plans in place to address them. So now I would like to introduce my colleague and curriculum counterpart, SWR STEM Director, Dr. Palicelli, to discuss the district's math and science assessment results.
Can I ask you a quick? Oh, go ahead.
Sure. I didn't know if we were taking questions at the end or in between. So, sure.
We can. I mean,
Whatever
Now-
works for you
now
is
we-
fine with me. I'm here and it's fresh on our minds, so that's fine.
When did the rewrite happen? When was it fully implemented for the workshop model in the middle school?
So we began post-COVID, the shutdown, doing virtual, believe it or not, in 2021, 21-22, we were doing virtual PD. And that was focused on the grammar. So we wrote the grammar plans first because those were the easiest to implement, the grammar plans. The following year, so 22-23, we wrote the writing curriculum next. So we took the school year to write the writing curriculum based off of the grammar, and we integrated the grammar with the writing. And then the following year, which would have been the 23-24 school year, we wrote the reading units. And again, made sure to integrate and, combine the skill development between the grammar, the writing, and the reading. So I guess they were fully implemented into the 24-25 school year. So last year being one of the first years.
I mean, with the 3-3 ELA test, it's so hard to see.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I mean, you kind of, when you compare other districts, that sometimes tells you more about the test than actually our curriculum, unfortunately. Do you think that we'll be paying close attention to the impact of the curriculum and how, like, what are our plans to do that? Are we seeing with iReady there's changes, or,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we only have one full year of implementation, is that true?
Yes, well, we were implementing the pieces as we went along. So it's not like it was 3 years before we implemented the units. We implemented it in stages. So they had the grammar first, then the writing, then the reading. And again, remember when we were writing our curriculum units, they were based off of the very strong curriculum we already had in place. We were just kind of fine-tuning it, bringing the pieces together, building assessments because we wanted to be more data-driven. So that was, it's not like we were starting from scratch. We were really building on something that was already kind of in place. So yeah, I think that I think that the iReady data, is definitely being, or showing growth. I think our Regents assessments and our mastery levels have been, as well, showing growth. And I do believe, like I said earlier, that first ninth grade skills assessment of the school year, we did the whole entire 9th grade, and we looked at the data, and that data showed that vocabulary was one of the strongest skills, but that the students were, coming in with pretty strong skills. So I think, again, we're putting more and more assessments in place, and we're looking at the data more and more, which is how the best way for us to see, how the curriculum
It's
is.
just hard to use the
right.
data on the ELA to assess the efficacy of the programs. when you're
Of
seeing
course,
things like that.
yeah. But remember that we actually are in a region where a lot of other schools have high opt-out rates as well. So we're really, comparing small percentages of students to small percentages of students. So there's a little bit of validity there. We haven't rebounded back to real full participation across Long Island in quite a while. So it's not 100% a reliable measure, but it's certainly something that we look at and that we analyze. And like all data, we take, all of it and kind of look at it and tease out what we can in terms of, like I said before, patterns.
Okay, thanks.
I love hearing about the vertical alignment in terms of 8th to 9th. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what's next for those assessment measures? So like the vocabulary showing an increase, awesome. And then how does that go from 9th to 10th and that sort of thing?
Sure. Yeah, the good thing about the new skills assessment that we've implemented in 9th, 10th, and 11th grades is that similar to the iReady diagnostic being 3 times a year, we will be doing that 3 times a year as well for the entire cohort of students so that we can monitor their growth in all of those skills, those literacy skills, vocabulary included. So that's one thing that's new this year that we're going to be using that. And so again, we can see the development from year to year. Another thing that we are, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Just the idea. So the idea of assessing the new assessments, that's really going to show some interesting data for next year. Awesome. What else in terms of, so the middle school rewrote curriculum or tweaked curriculum amongst those 3 particular skills? How is that continuing on through 9th grade into 12th grade?
Okay, well, again, the standards change from year to year, so we're assessing different standards, in different grade bands from the 9-10 to the 11-12. But we are always, again, I work with all of the teachers K-12, so that's the advantage of having a K-12 director that really sees the standards and making sure the standards alignment is there, and then seeing how the assessments are measuring those standards, and then seeing where those perhaps gaps are that we can then address and then improve upon for year after year. So, for example, like I said, that vocabulary piece, we had noticed through the assessment of the iReady that was an area of not weakness for us, because we're always very high in those green triangles, right? But it was an area where we wanted to focus, and we've seen growth since. And what I was going to say before, the thought came back to me, so that's a great thing, was that now that our vocabulary has risen, what we're now noticing is that there's a little pattern where informational text has actually gone down a little bit. So to answer your question about what our future focus would be, we've already started to have conversations. Dr. Palicelli even and I have been having conversations about interdisciplinary reading, how to help the teachers with informational text across all disciplines, and that's something that we're going to be focusing on going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Remind me, do we have common assessments in sections in high school? So is there horizontal alignment with the assessments? So if there's multiple sections of 9th grade English, are they using the same local assessments? They are?
So the units, we're actually in the process of building our units around the Common Lit. I had presented on that, I think, last spring. So that curriculum and those assessments are still in development, but we're moving in that direction. And then that skills assessment that I mentioned, that is a common assessment 3 times a year. That lets us look at within grade level progress and skill development. And then once we continue to give it, we'll be able to see between grade level progress.
Thank you. So complicated. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
The triangle diagram, those are point-in-time analyses, right? They're not longitudinal analyses.
Yes.
Okay.
Point in time.
Okay. And then the other question I was just curious about is to be able to better contextualize the state test data, have we ever looked at iReady outcomes for students who opted in compared to students who didn't?
That's a great question. I particularly have not,
Okay.
and I don't know, Mr. Meinster could speak
Okay.
to the history there. I don't think we have done that, but that's
I
actually
mean, you're
an-
probably looking at like 20 compared to 100.
right.
but
It's difficult to compare
I'd
because
just be
it's
curious
apples to
I'd
oranges.
just be curious if those triangle diagrams kind of mirrored or not. I don't know. I don't have a thought on it.
Jim, is your question, you want to take a look at the performance of ELA state assessments for students that opt in and how they do on iReady opposed to those that opt out and how they do on iReady?
Yes.
Just
yeah.
to say, like, if we're, when we're comparing to other school districts, are we talking about students who are high academic achievers, or is it like a sample of students, a representative sample of academic performance?
You.
That we actually have done that.
Yes.
We haven't gone into, your original question was, are we looking at students that took the ELA versus students that didn't, and is there a distinction between how they're performing in iReady?
Yeah.
So that we have not done. But we have looked at who the students are that are opting in,
Right.
and they do represent a relative standardized cross-section of our population.
Okay, great.
So it's not skewed to
Yeah.
only our high achievers
Right.
are taking it, or only our low achievers.
Great.
Yes, we have
Cool.
looked at that.
Thanks.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
We're
All
good.
right.
Thank you.
Dr. Paolicelli, thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It's good to see everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about how our students performed in the STEM areas. So we'll talk K-8 first. So here we have the last 4 years of math, of data in the math state, New York State test, the last 4 years. So what you'll notice from this graph is that while there's variation from year to year, there's an overall consistency you could see as marked out there in green. I would bring so if you look at all the scores, and I'm not going to read off all the scores to you, but I'm sure you could see the consistency, except for the 2025 grade 6. I can tell you that we've already analyzed that data. We've already had the conversations about that data. It turns out that it is in the EE standard, which is expressions and equations. We've even had our 7th and 8th grade teachers invite our 6th grade teachers in to observe them teach the lesson in that. And we had a vertical conversation today with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers about how to address that standard as a vertical group at the middle school. So so we've identified it, and we are teaching into it, the whole group on board. It was a fantastic discussion today. So the algebra results at the bottom. So for grade 8, we don't have very many students take the grade 8 test, so the data is not really valid. It's the algebra test. That is the data that you see, because we have virtually all of our students taking the algebra exam, and you can see that our proficiency rates are very high. Kind of suggests that our K-8 program is functioning, is working. All right, so, I mean, it's a little bit of an overlap from Ms. Waldbauer's discussion, but we do see a trend towards increased participation. Even though there is limited participation, we confirm that with a conversation with other teachers, so that we were, just as I mentioned with the data for the 6th grade math, we confirm that with a conversation with the other teachers. So, so we do see limited participation. We are including the data where available in our MTSS discussions, along with other data. And in general, the student readiness for success in math remains strong, demonstrated by our algebra results. Our students on preliminary statewide data outperformed their state cohort by 10%, 65 to 55%. Our students also outperformed the region by more than 15% in almost every grade. So that's an important highlight. Okay, so we are also using the iReady Universal Screener in K through 5. We just started using it at the middle school for this year, so I won't be able to report on that data because we don't have it from the prior school year. So again, we have the snapshot. The short things I wanted to highlight is that we do see in math, we do see an overall progression from tiers 3 and 2 to tier 1. If I can highlight in the bottom, in the tier 2 triangle, that yellow triangle, that 63% of the students that were in tier 2 progressed into tier 1. The next triangle next to it, the red one, for the tier 3 students, if you look, the progression from the red triangle into the yellow and the green, which is movement from tier 3 into tier 2 or tier 1, that was 68% of our students. So watching that kind of movement into tier 2 and tier 1 does provide evidence that our intervention program is working.
Dr. Policelli, is that a
Sure.
specific program, or are teachers designing it based on goals for individual students?
The iReady?
Tier 2 and tier 3.
So the intervention program. So tier 2 and tier 3 is supported by iReady. We're using tier 3 supported by IXL, but the teachers design their own systems to teach into it. These are just marks. They provide data points.
I think you presented that.
Yeah, we can use it, and we can use it as a supportive tool, but the teachers are providing their instruction. So breaking down by building, as Ms. Waldbauer mentioned, if you look at Miller Avenue, we saw the greatest movement from tier 2 and tier 3 into tier 1. Again, our newest learners may be coming at different levels. But we do see that, again, our intervention program is working. More students are progressing into tier 1. On this slide, I can also highlight that movement from tier 2 to tier 1 was 75% of our students moved from tier 2 to tier 1 at Miller Avenue, and from tier 3 to tiers 1 or 2 was 80% of our students. So again, it really does support. It also, Ms. Kosser is also fantastic, but it does support our intervention program is working. Right, at Wading River, again, a progression towards tier 1. And from students that are progressing from tier 2 to tier 2, that yellow triangle, to the green to tier 1, 65.8% of tier students made that move. And from tier 3 to tier 2 or tier 1, 72.7 of those students progressed from tiers 3 to 2 or 1. So I would say, so in key findings for overall, we'll say that students that we identify that are falling into the bottom 10th percentile is reviewed by the MTSS team and considered for pull-out instruction. Students that fall in between the 11th and the 25th percentile, we consider for in-class support as well as a pull-out support. We do, at the conclusion of the school year, 83% of students were tier 1, 13% were tier 2, and 4% were tier 3, which is pretty consistent with functional MTSS models. The iReady diagnostic only serves as one piece of the puzzle. The MTSS team takes in all the data, not just this, when making their determinations. And again, the evidence of the student progression, again, supports the conclusion that our intervention program is working. Right, so if I turn over to New York State Science, so we do have science exams in grade 5 now and grade 8. So in grade 5, so this is the second year of the new standards in grade 5 and grade 8. So you could see from this past year, 2025, 49% of our students were proficient, scored in proficiency, which is down from the 2024. Again, it's something we've already analyzed the data. We've already had the conversation with 5th grade teachers. I could tell you we looked at the multiple choice questions and found the physical science. Out of the high miss questions, more of them were physical science. So we've already had that conversation, already had ideas on how to teach into it. When we looked at the constructed response, it was the teachers felt there was a reading comprehension. And Ms. Wall, that was leading to the conversation Ms. Waldbauer and I had about how to support that at all grade levels. You have a question, Megan?
No, it was
Oh,
just
okay.
a totally different test.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So grade 8, again, the data is the number of students that actually take that test make the data not really usable. But you can see that our earth science, our students, our 8th grade students that take the earth science exam, 97% proficiency, even on that challenge of an exam. So it does speak to our teachers' efforts to prepare our students. We've identified areas that we can have that conversation about, Ms. Wallbauer and I, about improving the reading comprehension and the stamina of our students in challenging reading situations. So that work is happening.
Proficiency is what on the regions?
Proficiency would be levels 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, I believe. Yeah, 65 or better. 65 or better. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dr. Poe, I know there was serious concerns with the curriculum that was taught this year in the school district compared to what was actually presented on the regions, especially in earth science, and I think there was some overlap in biology.
Right.
Is that number a typo? Because when we're talking about proficiency, there's another slide, I think like 3 slides after this, where we come in at 85%, but you have 97% here
Right.
for the test. And
Fantastic question. This represents the students at Purdell. This doesn't include the students at the high school because we're talking about 8th grade students. So the 8th grade students, their proficiency score, and I had the same question as you not too long ago, and I was able to clarify. These are 8th grade students, 97% proficiency. At the high school, the students that took earth science at the high school, that's where it includes into the 85% that you see in a later slide.
So the later slide is the 8th graders
And the high school, it's earth science as earth science of 9th graders and 8th graders put together. This is just the 8th graders.
Now, does this take into consideration the cumulative average of students that retook the test over the summer with the old Regents curriculum?
No, that is not included in this.
All right, I would want to challenge that number because I know that we received a lot of emails from parents concerned about, and maybe I'm not taking into consideration that maybe a curve was applied, but a lot of students, failed the first, the Regents in earth science. So the fact that we have a 97% proficiency rate, I don't know. I don't know how we can get to that number when we had so many concerns brought to the district.
Right, and I do hear what you're saying. I heard, the more concerns that I heard were students that did not achieve mastery that were expecting to achieve mastery. I heard more of those concerns, honestly, than I did proficiency.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so key findings for science. So I'll say both the 5th and 8th grade assessments were aligned to the new New York State Science Learning Standards. Analysis of the grade 5 science results. I mentioned already that we're going to continue, both Ms. Wallbauer and I, to explore ways to support students in the reading and the depth of the reading that's required. And our strong grade 8 earth science regents, 97% of the students attaining proficiency, despite those concerns.
And what is technically mastery on?
Mastery is 85 or above.
85. Is that always static?
I'm sorry? Yes, it has been for a long time.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay.
That's still you guys.
This is okay.
Okay, so let's go one more.
Okay. So Ms. Wallbauer will present the Regents outcomes, and then I will come back up and present the Regents outcomes for STEM.
Okay, so the humanities Regents outcomes. You've heard all about the foundational K-8 literacy work that we do here in Shoreham. So now I have the pleasure of sharing our very fine ELA and social studies Regents results at the high school. So as you can see here, we had a very high passing rate on the ELA Global 2 History and Geography and the U.S. History Regents exam last June. The Social Studies Regents exams were aligned to the new Next Generation standards within the last few years, and the Next Generation ELA Regents exam will be required for the first time this June. So we have been preparing for that, although we're not anticipating any major changes to that exam based on the educator's guide that was released this summer. The region here that you see that we're being compared to is the Eastern Suffolk BOCES school districts. And in every humanities subject area tested, our students well outpaced their regional and their statewide peers. Overall, we were 13% higher. So very, very good results. The year-to-year comparison, as you can see, again, although we went down slightly from 24 to 25 in ELA and U.S. history, we, again, well outscored the region, as said in the previous slide. And I'm happy to report that we actually went up a little bit in global, while the region actually went down. So that is a pretty impressive result as well. So again, the year-to-year, we're really holding steady and really, getting great results on our English and social studies Regents exams.
Can I ask a question about the results? So the results are remarkable, and I think a huge point of pride. I can't help but feel nervous as an English teacher to change anything, especially with a different curriculum, when we see results like this. So I don't mince words about, I don't like Common Lit. I feel like it has a lot of limitations, especially in the wording of the multiple choice questions, and I just feel like what we're doing is working. So what's the rationale behind changing that?
Well, I mean, again, in a high-performing district like ours, we're really always looking at mastery results as well. And so moving our mastery levels up is fine-tuning, what the students are learning and fine-tuning their skills. One thing that we brought on to help us fine-tune those skills are those Common Lit assessments. So we are not relying on Common Lit to replace our curriculum at all. We are using it as a resource to kind of supplement, and also, Mrs. Teppenhart asked before about common assessments. It's one way that we're able to have the teachers still do that rich, curriculum that's exciting and that gets kids up and speaking and engaged. But at the same time, it gives us some common assessments to pull from. It's also standards aligned to the New York State standards, so we can take a peek at, where our standards, we really did a lot of vertical alignment from 9th to 10th to 11th grades, starting in the summer. And again, that work is ongoing. So we're using some of those resources to help us make sure that all of our standards are being met. So we're really just using it as a resource and a guide to help tie together what we do in the grade level, but then also between the grade levels. And that's the approach we've been taking. And that's the same approach we did with the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade as well. We did not throw away our wonderful Christmas Carol units, our wonderful Outsiders units. We brought on some exciting new units, like the Fractured Fairy Tales that have been so popular. And Common Lit does have some new material we can pull from. They also, if you look deeper into their guides, they do have a lot of interactive material. Today we were learning about discussion points. They have some really good supports for how to get kids talking in the classroom. So we're looking, again, at it more as a resource that gives us like good instructional practices, good assessments that, while maybe not perfect to the New York State's assessment questions, it's still giving us good data about the skills that are being developed. And then, of course, again, the standards alignment. So that's how we're using it.
Okay.
So we'll likely be able to glean more insight in the future by looking at those mastery numbers, not just proficiency.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's really where, and that's for the social studies as well. I mean, where else is there to go when you have 100% passing in the U.S. history regents, and that was the new U.S. history regents that we took, and we scored the first time 100% passing. So in the humanities, we're always also looking at those mastery numbers, taking a look at what skills do the students need to develop and fine-tune their answers, which bumps them up to the next level. You know, lifting their level of writing, of responses. The vocabulary work has been helping us do that. So that's where we put our efforts in for the humanities.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And now Dr. Palicelli. Oh, the mastery. Okay. Sorry about that. We were just talking about mastery. Yes. So as you can see, our proficiency levels are quite high. Our mastery levels are quite good. And again, in comparison to the region, again, sometimes you look and see that, you know, that 38%, that 37% might not seem so strong. But we saw when the new assessments came on board, quite a drop in mastery levels with the new next generation social studies standards. So again, or social studies assessments, Regents assessments. So that's where we're focusing our time. We're doing a lot more, you know, instead of just focusing on the content, how are we helping kids become more critical thinkers? How are we helping them with those, you know, dense, difficult, complex passages, and how are we building their stamina and helping them with their written responses and improve the level of their written responses. So that's more of the work we're doing to help bring up those mastery levels.
And on the data side, do you look at, you know, maybe there's proficiency and mastery, but that level 4 group of kids that are on the cusp of mastery, is there, like, through the data an opportunity to see average scores, or, you know, even that triangle diagram that we get for iReady, can we look at that through the Regents lens?
Yes, that's a great question. Just this year, we used our shared data expert, Sarah Campbell from BOCES. We had her run some of that data to show what kids were kind of on the cusp. That's something that I brought to the attention of the teachers, and, you know, in department meetings, we had a conversation about, like, what can we do to just get those students just right there, kind of over the hump. So that is something that we definitely look at, and luckily with our shared data expert and the BOCES, the BARS reports we're able to run, we can do that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. As we begin taking a look at the Regents exams for the STEM areas, we start with a comparison to the region. So here, some of the highlights, right, that our students outperform the region, including the new science exams. So if I highlight that our students, and that's that 85.4, that's inclusive of the high school as well as the middle school, compared to the region at 62.1% passing. So obviously a huge gain for us, huge support for our teachers and the work that we did. 89.5% passing in biology against the region at 72.3. So happy with those results, with opportunities to continue making our improvements, right? So if you look at the results, like six out of the 7 exams, we outperformed the region, 4 of them by double digits. We do have a couple opportunities, the Algebra 2, and as I'm going to show you probably on the next slide, chemistry are 2 areas that we're taking a closer look at and starting to look at why, even though we beat the region on one and we were pretty close on the other, we believe that there's opportunities there. Right, so as we look at last year to this year comparison, While we see similar results in algebra and an increase in physics, we continue to analyze. So if you look at the algebra 2 and the chemistry, both of them went down more than the region for both of those. So we've already started our analysis of those. We did not find common standards. So that was our initial review, is to look for common standards that we could teach into. We didn't find common standards in the high missed questions. So our analysis continues with that. If you see the bottom exams don't really have a year-to-year performance, because those were the changing exams. So we don't really have it's not really a fair comparison, because the standards were totally different from one to the other. All right, so now if we add in the percentage of students at mastery, our mastery rates remain the same or increased in 4 out of the 7 STEM exams. The decline in mastery rates on the 2 new science exams were likely a result of the challenging reading level.
Dr. Pacelli,
Yes.
just going back to my previous question, I mean, when you, especially with, you look at living environment biology, it's a 72% decrease in mastery, right? So it seems like, based on what Ms. Wolbauer just mentioned, we're taking more of a reactive approach rather than proactive. I mean, like, that's a significant decline. And so the weight that I put into these numbers, proficiency is great. I mean, kids pass. But I think really where it's real, the detail is the mastery piece. And so
I agree.
you're seeing a significant decline. And so, like, what was missed, especially in this past year, leading up to these 2 regencies, that, whether it be the curriculum or a misalignment on the actual state test, that attributed to such a drastic decrease. And so, like, and how do we solve for that going forward? Because again, I go back to my previous comment regarding a lot of parents complaining about, what was taught in preparation for this exam.
Sure.
And that's really where we should be measuring ourselves, not so much on the proficiency piece.
Oh, I agree with you 110%. I just went to one of the conferences, LIASCD, which has all the districts in it, and they did a workshop on it. And the first slide of the presenter was the challenges with the exam, the challenges that I've kind of mentioned that we're going to kind of focus into. It was the challenge was the level of reading. Our professional developer that we have in, Dr. Kang, she's a professor for Adelphi. She actually took the exams and she did a reading analysis of it, and it came up to a collegiate level reading on these exams. Her analysis and her words to us is that these were collegiate level reading and writing and interpreting. So did we prepare for the standards? 100%. Did we prepare our kids for every guidance that was provided by the state? 100%. Did we do all the field testing? So we even did the field tests. So we knew we got to see the questions from the bank of questions that they were pulling from, just so that way the teachers were exposed to it, so that they could see it. I want to say that as I look back at every available possible resource to provide for our teachers over the last several years to prepare for this was exhausted. And not just for us, but it counts for many other districts. It was that reading comprehension level that just, it was, I'll give you a short example. I read one of the earth science questions. I knew the answer when I read it. It was a multiple choice question. I read choice, and I knew the answer when I read the question, and I read choice A. Wasn't so sure by the way it was read. And choice A was a sentence. And then I had to read, so I had to use the process of elimination to find the answer of a question that I knew the answer to. And that's me. This was fairly a consistent opinion across all districts, that it was the reading comprehension that made it difficult for kids to access the science.
Well, we can hope that the state, as we make modifications, the state also makes modifications to their creation of exams. That being said, did local districts also see that drop in percentage of mastery?
In fact, I don't have the data in front of me, but I think they saw worse. Their results, our results surpass theirs. I don't have the data in front of me, but.
And do you get a sense that in the instruction that's happening now in those classes where reading comprehension was at one time not expected to be such a core component of instruction, that they're focused now on?
Well, yeah, so, yeah, another great question. So, I mean, like a reading paragraph, yes. But these weren't paragraphs that were given on this last test. These were entire passages with data tables mixed into the passage, and then another passage, and then you answered one question, and then they added another passage onto the other passage.
Right.
So kids are going back and forth in pages to try and gather all the information. That was the problem. So, well, obviously, so now we are teaching into that. So we have that. We have those examples of that format, and we don't believe that that format is going away.
Right.
So we are going to teach into that format, and my conversations with every one of our science teachers is I want to see that level of reading in our exams, in our tests, now, not in May, now. This has to be done every week. This has to be done throughout the year. That has to be done in homework assignments. That has to be done in classwork assignments. I want to see this throughout. I want our students to be prepared. I want their stamina to be built up to where they come across these and it's just another reading. It's just another passage.
So as a point of clarity, that was something that was not expected by teachers when that test was
That
issued?
level of reading comprehension and the passages, that format, not expected.
Okay, so I guess, like, what were they teaching to if they didn't have that level of content to understand, okay, this is what the expectations are on the test?
Sure.
We should be teaching to that so that
Well,
kids-
we were teaching following the standards and following the guidance provided, the slim piece of guidance that was provided by the state. And I tried grabbing every other piece. Again, examples, those field tests. I asked the state for the field tests because I wanted our teachers to see what their questions are going to look like for next year. None of that pointed to what we saw. Every piece. So even their guidance, their guidance questions, their sample questions, they gave us 6 sample questions. That's it. And that was what they gave us for 2 years. That's all we had to go by. So I was grabbing at everything I could to try and prepare our kids, trying to prepare our teachers to prepare our kids for this.
So can I just ask, is the thought, so you're talking about a lot of exposure to this high level of text. You know, given that it's content in science, is there anything, Mrs. Walbrow suggested that humanities is going to kind of collaborate.
Absolutely.
Is there anything done for informational reading that is helping our core teachers in science
Right.
to kind of embed some of those cross-cutting concepts of literacy into
Absolutely.
science?
Absolutely. So not only have her and I had that conversation about how we can support that through the district, but again, my encouragement, so I've provided the databases to teachers so they can draw from those questions and use those past questions. So we have June and August that our science teachers can use right away. Plus, there's been a number of workshops that are being offered specifically focused on information, of informational text, for science teachers now.
Yeah.
So a number, and that even speaks to the concerns with the test. When you have an organization like BOCES that is now providing a whole bunch of workshops on reading informational text for science teachers.
Yeah, exposure isn't enough, so I just think it's a different skill set. It's hard.
Yeah. And it's something that we've identified and teaching it to. I'm sorry, Katie.
That's okay. I'm curious to know, like, with the amount of time that it's going to take to expose students in that way and teachers, and the amount of additional content that needs to be, so skills plus content, what is it that is giving? So do our students have more homework now? How are we fitting this additional, very bulky layer?
Right.
In?
Very fair. So I don't think it's not the content. It's how we present. It's how we present and how we assess the content with students. So it's not like the old exams where it's just straight recall. So we have to present a different form of assessment. The content. So we've taught it to a deeper level, following the standards specifically now. But it's how we assess it. So instead of having 25 questions on a test, we'll have 15. But there'll be 2 clusters, so we call them clusters now, of reading, data tables, 4 or 5 questions. Reading, another cluster. So we might put 2 clusters on a test, so there might be less questions, but more intense reading. That's really kind of where we're at. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to, I want to say phase in. So we're adding some of those cluster questions now. And we'll increase the amount of cluster questions as as we continue progressing.
So, if we have less questions, and I know this sounds like so nitty gritty, but like if we have less questions, does that mean that our students' grades are gonna drop because they have less opportunity? If you have a bigger test, then it's easier to get a good grade, right? So I'm just nervous about the unintended consequences of this massive shift.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I suggested a balanced approach, where if we just turned over right now into just cluster questions, I could see what you're saying, but we're trying to take a balanced approach where we're balancing the content with the cluster questions. I think we owe it to our students; they have to see it now.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But we need to deliver the content as well. The overall standards from content from the old standards to the new standards is, I don't want to say it's reduced, but there is less content, less width, more depth in the new standards.
Okay.
So there is that piece in there too.
Okay, so we are trimming some
So
of the
yes,
content
exactly,
as
and
we
we're
go
being
deeper.
able to teach to that. So
Okay.
it has allowed our teachers a little longer to be able to explore a little bit more in depth and question at a deeper level.
Less to
Okay.
memorize, more to interpret.
It's also a time test,
That's
so you
honestly,
have to
that's the hardest
balance.
shift now,
I
is
know.
because
I mean,
teachers
I know.
teachers,
I don't know.
a
I
lot
think
of
there's a
parents, a lot of
miss.
kids
I
are
mean, I
used
just
to
like-
being able to read a question, and I'm going home and I'm studying the terms. It doesn't,
One question, was it required that the district use that new exam?
I don't think,
I think other districts or the state have different options of exam to take, correct?
Yeah, so from our understanding as a board, and this was really a thoughtful approach, other districts all districts had the opportunity to not take this exam. However, most districts did not avail themselves to the level of exposure and professional development and training that our district did in terms of preparation for this exam. So we've been preparing for the new one for 4 years, and other districts just started preparing. So for other districts, if you're just beginning that preparation, it doesn't make sense to administer the new exam. From our perspective, if you've done 4 years of preparation, why would you administer the old exam? So that was very intentional.
So maybe at the end, we can.
Yeah, at the end, we can
take
address a
resident
question.
comments.
Yeah.
Yep. And I would also just say that the expectation from the state was that everyone was going to take this exam.
Yes,
Jim,
yeah.
that is
And there
correct.
were
It was
Yeah.
the expectation.
Minimal exceptions that were allowed, and some districts decided to
Take advantage of it.
not adhere to the
To the guidelines, to the
Expectations.
timeline that they published, that's still published.
I think it's important not to forget as well that Alan, Joe, the high school administration put together a summer review week. So students that wanted to get a better grade had a week of instruction over the summer and the opportunity to retake those exams over the summer to get a better grade that they wanted based on our results. So I appreciate you guys doing that.
And I still think that the state has some reflection to do, because if you're looking at reading levels that are collegial, it's kind of where the ELA was years ago. It's just not, the 3 through 8 tests were years ago. It's just not falling at, we're not assessing what we're saying we're assessing,
Right.
essentially.
And I'm hoping, so when I provided the teachers with the scoring guide, the last page of the scoring guide is a feedback to the state. So I made sure that, that the teachers can and hopefully did respond.
Across the state.
Across state, yeah. All right.
All right, so looking at overall the Regents exams there, in half of the subjects that were tested, we're looking at the student passing rate did decrease from 24 to 25. And again, you heard from both Ms. Wallbauer and Dr. Policelli, the work that's been taking place this year to kind of teach into that and to try to make sure that we're preparing our students as well as possible for them to rebound from that. One of our subjects saw an increased passing rate that was over 2%, and then the remaining 4, they were plus or minus 2% of what the students had done last year, so pretty much no real net change. Our students continue to demonstrate significantly stronger than average outcomes in just about all subject areas, when they are compared to their peers across the region and the state. So while we definitely have some work to teach into some of these new exams and to ensure that our students are as well prepared as possible for success on them, we are still starting from a place of strength with that, especially when you compare us to the students across our state and across our region. We continue to look at our not only overall performance, which is what Nicole and Joe were just talking about, but we also look every single year at all of our subgroup performances. So we'll look at all of the different subgroups of students to see not only how are our overall students performing, but how are our subgroups performing compared to their peers. So we always take a look at that. One of the things that we are very happy about is that consistently over the last few years, as we do look at this data, what we do find is that our subgroups actually perform pretty much on par with their general population peers right across the board, and in many cases outperform them. So looking at economically disadvantaged students, they performed on par with, in several subjects, outperformed their peers last year. We saw one subject that was an outlier on that particular group, which was Algebra 1, and we've already been spending time looking at the data for that, and we'll be working with the teachers as we go forward to kind of take a look at, well, what was the cause, or if we can see what were the root causes of why did students that fell into that particular grouping, that subgroup, why on that particular assessment did they do so much worse than their peers? But that is, again, what we do on a regular basis to ensure that we are looking at all different facets of the data and how we can use that to inform the work we're doing with our teachers and our students. Looking at the students with disability subgroup as a group compared, also fared very well in comparison with their general education peers. The performance on the two new science regents exams saw the greatest gap between general ed and special education students, which should not come as a surprise when, as we just discussed, one of the major issues with those new assessments was the fact that the testing was at the collegiate level. And obviously, that is going to create an even more emphasized discrepancy for our students that already struggle on certain facets of their work. So we are continuing to take a look at that, and we are continuing to provide the tools to our teachers to dig into that data and to try to use that information to help inform future instruction. So moving on to our advanced placement college level entry content. So we offer our students 20 different AP exams. For a district of our size, I continue to emphasize each year how impressive that is. When we have a population as small as we are, relatively speaking, to be able to offer that many exams to that many students. And our students do amazingly well compared to all groups on them. So here is a graphic representation of that. So the blue bars are our students. The red one there are New York State, and the green is all students globally, because a lot of these assessments are not just national, they're international as well. So what you can see is pretty much across the board, you see all the blue above the rest there. That doesn't mean every subject, but in pretty much most of them, our students, you can see well outperform their peers on the AP exams. I'm going to break down some of the numbers here for you because that's where it really looks most impressive. If you go by the bar that a student getting a 3 or higher is likely to receive at least elective credit from a college for their coursework, and you convert that over, our students earned over 1,400 credits from the AP exams that they took last year by earning at least a 3 on those. That's up from 1,275 last year alone. And each year it continues to exceed. When I first started doing this presentation, I was pushing the idea that we would reach 1,000, and we broke that, and now we're well over that. We had 534 total tests taken. The average AP score was a 3.65 on a scale out of 5. And that is a statistically significant increase just from last year alone, where the average score was a 3.46. Over 88% of our students got at least a 3 or higher on the exams that they took. That's up 11% from last year. And 57% of the exams that were taken got a 4 or better. Also up 10% from last year. So as you can tell, which translates into the last bullet there, which actually is last year's because AP doesn't release the new ones until December or January. So this is actually still from last year. I'm actually expecting, based on the numbers that you see there, that when they come out with this year's, we will probably move over the very last hurdle that we have to being recognized as a platinum overall honor roll school. We already are a gold school. There are three criteria that they use for that. And you have to hit all three at platinum to be platinum overall. We hit 2 of the 3, and we just missed on the 3rd. So again, it is really a testament to the work of our teachers, our students, and our community, the outcomes that we see when it comes down to our AP exams. In terms of recognition from AP for that, also obviously that's parallel to the overall scores. 81 students, which is 45% of our graduating class, received some form of AP Scholar recognition last year. 43 students were named AP Scholars, that's up from 33. 26 AP Scholars with honors, up from 12. And 43 AP Scholars with distinction, up from 35. These are just incredibly impressive numbers. I cannot emphasize enough just how strong these results are comparative to other schools. 8 students last year graduated with a capstone diploma, meaning that they got at least a score of 3 or higher on both the AP Seminar and AP Research AP exams and on 4 other AP exams. And then 6 of our students, up from 3 last year, got the AP Capstone Certificate, meaning that they got at least the 3 or higher on Seminar and Research, but didn't reach that bar with 4 other exams in addition. So that's the difference between the certificate and the diploma.
But does that include is that all AP exams? So whether you took a junior or senior year?
Doesn't matter when.
Okay, got it.
Yep. We had 1 National Merit Scholar semifinalist, and we had 2 National Merit Commended Scholars. We're very consistent with that. We pretty much have about 3 kids every year that float around in those 2 categories, or even sometimes we'll get a National Merit Scholar finalist. But any of those levels are incredibly difficult to attain and are also, again, a reflection of the high achievement of our students. Moving on to the college entrance exams. So that would be our SAT and ACT performance. The SATs, every year I think that we're just doing so much better, and then each year we wind up getting even more distant from everybody else. I like to brag when I can. These results are just incredible. So our score last year, our average score on the SAT was a 579 in writing and a 588 in math. You can see right alongside it what the state and national bars were, and obviously it's not even close. We had 245, by the way, total students test, so this is not a small number. I don't know why I won't go back, but okay. So this is the ACT. Our students, we do not have a very large number of students that take the ACT compared to the SAT. 35 students took the ACT last year. The ACT is a little bit trickier to look at because New York State, only about 8% of students take the ACT. Very small grouping, and it's usually a very select group. In other words, the students statewide that take the ACT are those that know they're going to do strongly on it. That's why they're taking it. So it tends to skew the data. We've lagged in this measure in the past because we have about 20% of our students that take it. So obviously when you have a much larger percent, you're going to get a much broader distribution and a lower average. However, last year, if you take a look at the furthest right, the composite column, you'll notice that we've pulled just about even now with New York State, even with the fact that we have so many more kids taking it percentage-wise. So again, even though this is one that we look like we're a little lower, we are moving in the right direction, and we have actually caught up.
Can I ask, when we look at regions and we're compared to regions, are we talking Long Island or state?
The region is Eastern Suffolk BOCES in Suffolk County.
Okay. And is there a correlation between the ACTs and for state comparisons to Shoreham and the regions compared to Shoreham?
No. No, ACT data is not aggregated out by BOCES, so they're not able to provide that because they're not provided that information. So that's where you wind up. The state and the national is all that we are able to ascertain because
No, the other way. Can we look at we can look at the regions and look at the region scores for the state as compared to us.
oh, okay, yes. So the statewide New York State Regents performance,
Is that
that what you're looking for?
Between the ACTs
okay,
and Shoreham, for the
Right.
state and Shoreham versus the regions scores for Shoreham and the state.
the only missing data point of those four that you're asking to compare is the statewide Regents results, which the state has not released yet.
Oh, really?
Nope. They're holding back on that.
Okay.
I was able to get the regional data in because we can get that from BOCES. The state has been, and they are typically reticent to put that out. It comes out usually in December or January, the statewide results from the previous June.
Now, the student results for these numbers are our current senior, represents our current senior body. The student
Last year.
graduate.
This is last year's graduating class.
Okay.
Okay, college entrance exams, just some summaries there. Again, we performed out there. We're 52 points higher in New York State and 58 points higher in reading, 70 points higher than New York State, and 80 points higher in math. Student composite SAT score is 122 points above the state and 138 over the national, with an average student score on the SAT of 1167. Our students performed on par on the ACT, and again, we talked about that, I did on the last slide, so I'm going to move along here. So now looking overall at graduation outcomes. So overall for the class of 2025, we had 98% of our students graduate. The remaining 2% are a combination of any students that may have dropped out, but also students that continue to stay in school beyond the end of their cohort. Those would be students in our RISE program who typically will continue on in school until age 21. Those students, however, are considered to be non-grads with their cohort. So the year that their cohort graduates, which is the 4-year cohort, if they are continuing on, they are considered a non-grad, which is kind of a poor way of describing that, but that's what's in here and contributes to this number. 2% of our students received a local diploma, 27% received a Regents diploma, 60% received a Regents diploma with advanced designation, and 12% with advanced designation with honors. So when you add those three numbers up, that's the 100% of the students that graduated come from those numbers. And if you put those two advanced designation categories together, that's 72% of our students with advanced designation diplomas, which is historically very high. That's about as high as we have ever had, and we continue to focus on that. 5% of our students graduated with the seal of civic readiness, 6% with the seal of biliteracy, in addition to all of their other accolades for graduation. And then post-secondary plans, this is self-reported. 77% of our students reported that they were going to be going on to a 4-year college, 17% to a 2-year college, and the remaining 6% either employment and or the military upon graduation. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Von Eschen, who is going to take a little bit of a look and a dive into how our special education students performed on graduation outcomes.
I only have one side, so it's not going to be too long. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. But I couldn't miss this opportunity to get up here and speak about these amazing results. So the graduation outcomes for our students with disability, we're looking at that 100%. And as Alan just described, we do have some students that are entitled to education until the day before their 22nd birthday. So, of course, we're thrilled to continue with those students. So we're looking at the 19 students that graduated in last year's class. So of those students that were meant to graduate, 100% graduated. We do have 16% with a local diploma, and that means they did take Regents exams, and they're taking Regents level curriculum, and I never want that to get lost. So there's a little bit of different expectations maybe in scores on some exams, and a kind of confusing way to figure out that they get to a local diploma, but they are passing exams and they are passing Regents level coursework to get that local diploma. And that's a true accomplishment to those students. As you see, 68% of our students are getting Regents diplomas, and we are super proud of that other 16% who are getting Regents diplomas with advanced designation. So they are completing, likely 3 years of foreign language, and those are just really high accomplishments for us. Our post-secondary plans, again, self-reported, but we are trying to collect data on that this year to see where students actually end up, but this is the data from last year. So 27% of our students report that they're going to a 4-year college, 32% to a 2-year college, 32% were going directly into employment, and a lot of our students do take us up on BOCES opportunities in their junior and senior year, so it's great to see that they do move on to employment opportunities that come out of those vocational educational systems that we've put them in here. So we're proud of those numbers, and 5% were going on to further vocational programs. And that's really what we have. Any questions? That's great. Huh? Great. Thank you.
And then I have one more slide here, just basically, this is actually reported by the colleges, not by the students. So this one actually is not about plans, but it's actually the percentage of students from Shoreham-Wading River who are actually enrolled in a public and private institution. So the top number there reflects that 84% of our student class are enrolled this school year in either a public or private 4-year institution. And you can see that there's a trend that goes back and forth over time there on whether they're going to private institutions or public institutions, with the private institutions taking a big jump last year. Again, some of that's just class-to-class variations, but some of it is also a trend that is out there broadly of a lot of students in New York starting to explore schools that are in other areas of the country. So, and that would be private institutions as well as public. So that's just an interesting data point. And then finally, this is just the last key findings. Again, over 99% of the class received a Regents diploma or Regents diploma with advanced designation from those that graduated last year. 72% of them received some form of advanced designation diploma. 84% of our student graduates are enrolled in college this fall. 94% of special education students that were in the graduating class that walked last year received either a Regents diploma or Regents with advanced designation. 9 students with seal of biliteracy and 7 students with the seal of civic readiness. So again, these are incredibly impressive numbers that we should all be proud of, and it really is a testament to all of the work from central office through administration to the teachers to the kids. And that is everything. Questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meinster, Dr. Palicelli, Ms. Waldbauer, Ms. Von Eschen. I know how much it takes to put those decks together, so we really appreciate the time. Next up, we have votes and resolutions. Approval of the October 28th, 2025 regular public meeting minutes. Can I get a motion? Katie, second Jim. Any discussions or questions? Take a vote. 6-0. We have curriculum instruction resolution. There's one of them, 2526074. Can I get a motion? Henry, second Megan. Any discussions or questions? Take a vote. 6-0. Personnel. Can I get a motion? Jim, second Katie. All in favor? 6-0. Any communications?
No, we have none.
Okay. And for discussion tonight, we have consideration of potential energy performance contract. I'll turn it to Mr. Poole, who...
Yeah, thanks, of course. So in New York State, an energy performance contract is a contract between a public entity like a school district and an energy service company to upgrade a building's energy efficiency, or buildings in a school district's energy efficiency. And the district has had EPC projects in the past. I think one all the way back maybe in 2007. That's complete, and then one in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Arcuri can correct me if I've got the dates wrong on that. The energy upgrades are financed, and the payments are repaid by the guaranteed energy and operating cost savings generated by the upgrades. So it's supposed to be a quid pro quo. This is how much the work costs, this is how much the savings is, it's supposed to be a match for that. So this approach allows schools to improve efficiency without needing an upfront capital budget increase, as the savings are used to pay for the project's debt payments. The debt from an EPC is a tax cap exclusion, and generally, they do impact the levy, as state aid for the projects is always delayed by a year or so. So before state aid comes back in, it's a year or so before it does change the levy the other way. The district board approved our architect firm BBS to prepare and issue an RFP for professional services for an EPC. The driver for this really was consideration of new solar electric systems on our newly recoated roofs. So we had some opportunity there with newly prepped roofs. The Space and Facilities Committee discussed this, and they were in favor of exploring an EPC. We did receive several responses, and with the support of VBS, identified 2 projects for consideration. And in a minute, Mr. Arcuri will very, very briefly give a little detail on the projects. But really, the consideration tonight is whether the board would like to get more details about those 2 projects, and if so, we'll have the district architect come at the next meeting to give a more in-depth presentation on what those 2 projects are, what are the costs, what's the scope of the projects, and what the impact be on the school district. So, but I will turn it over to Mr. Arcuri to give a little more detail.
Great, Mr. Poole, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the Board of Ed. Again, as Mr. Poole mentioned, the district architect prepared an RFP in order to identify a energy savings company to provide energy efficient upgrades via an energy performance contract. On January 28th, the district did receive 3 responses. The projects ranged in cost from $8.3 million to $15 million. As Mr. Poole mentioned, BBS representatives met with each of the vendors that submitted proposals to us, vetted them, prepared a worksheet for us, scored them, and then along with the BBS representatives, Mr. Poole, myself, Mr. Rossini, and the 2 Board of Education capital project liaisons, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Perez, met with them, had a detailed discussion on each of the project scope, and determined that some of the highlighted items included in the proposals received pertain to rooftop solar, building management system upgrades, retro commissioning of our existing building management system, kitchen hood controls, field lighting upgrades, HVAC upgrades, replacement of a couple of hot water heaters from oil to gas fired, and conversion of a oil fired boiler to a gas fired boiler. Again, we are at the point where an energy performance contract is to improve energy efficiency, and you pay for those improvements by the savings they generate. However, that savings is not all achieved in a single year. It takes about a 15-year window in order to begin to see that payback to cover the total cost of the project. So as Mr. Poole mentioned, the district takes on debt in order to make those payments. That debt is a tax levy exclusion. The following year, the district will receive building aid. The building aid is not a dollar for that debt value. However, the budget savings is supposed to be a dollar for dollar savings. So as Mr. Poole mentioned, the question that we have, does the district want to continue to pursue the benefits of an energy performance contract? And if so, I think it would be in the Board of Education's best interest to have the architect come from BBS, provide a much more detailed presentation and be able to field any and all questions you guys have.
Mr. Curie, can I ask, in the past when we've taken on EPCs, have it been historically a dollar for dollar savings the first year out?
And has it been a historically dollar for dollar savings? I'm going to say the answer is yes. However, you can't budget for that. The State Education Department will only approve the energy performance contract if the scope of work does not ensure that it's going to be a dollar for dollar savings. So if they are guaranteeing us, let's say, $100,000 worth of savings annually, and we don't hit that target, the energy company that is performing this work for us will actually fill in that gap for us.
Okay.
And this is, and it would be seen as an increase to the taxpayer based on the amount of money that we would go to contract for. Does that affect taxpayers differently in the out years? So an upfront cost and then maybe getting like a decrease as time goes on?
What the taxpayer is supposed to see is they're going to see an increase in the tax levy percentage by adding that debt.
Mm-hmm.
However, the operational general fund budget should come down by the energy savings,
Mm-hmm.
which would thus require reduced funding to support the overall budget. But there is, the only way to factor in that revenue coming in is to increase your tax levy in that first year. And the second year, we should begin to receive building aid. The ratio of building aid is 25.9% on the project. So we're going to, so let's just say we increase the levy by $100,000. The following year, we're going to see that building aid come in, so the levy will go down by $25,000.
Mm-hmm.
But each taxpayer should see a savings in the operational budget, meaning if we save $100,000 in utility costs, it should offset the debt service payment for $100,000, or even give us more. This is always supposedly the most conservative measures that the State Education Department's providing to us. But in the out years, after the 15 years after the debt has been paid, the solar panels, all of the energy efficiency upgrades made via an energy performance contract should have a useful life of 20 to 25 years. So in those out years, when the debt is fully paid, the quote energy efficiency savings should still be realized for the taxpayers.
Is that something you could speak on for the 2007? Are we still seeing energy savings?
We definitely, with our building management system, having the control of automation for startup, shutdown, we are definitely seeing utility bills lower than we were when it was a quote manual process. When I was relying on someone to turn the thermostat down in each and every instructional space. That on top of the LED lighting that was upgraded during the 2017 energy performance contract, we definitely saw utility costs. However, it's hard to show that when you're showing the utility budget, because in those same years I'm seeing a 12, 13, 14% rate increase, so that budget's still going up. But it's not going up as high as it would have gone up because that 12 to 14% is on a lower value.
And is there any benefit in our general timeline of investment in projects to doing an EPC now compared to 5 years from now?
The biggest the biggest investment, as Mr. Poole mentioned earlier, was to time the installing solar panels on top of the roofs because they were recently recoated, provided with a 20 to 25 year warranty, so that we time it so that I don't have to have solar panels that are still have 7 to 10 years worth of useful life on them, have to take them off, fix the roof, seal the roof, patch the roof, and then put those back on. That was I feel the a feeling behind the Space and Facilities Committee to go down this path in the first place, was to take advantage of solar. We don't currently have solar at our Wading River building or our Miller Avenue building. So that would be new to those buildings.
And that's all four buildings.
And then the middle school and high school, we would be expanding the solar that's currently here. So I firmly believe that was the main catalyst, because the savings that drives an energy performance contract pertains to conversions from oil to natural gas, as well as solar.
In your example, Jim, if you were saving $100,000 in energy bills and you waited 5 years, that's $500,000 that you wouldn't save out of your budget over that time period. So just to put it in perspective. The other analogy that I'll use that Mr. Akiri alluded to was, years ago we used to use a 100-watt light bulb. All right, you go out and you buy a commercial light bulb nowadays, it's LED. You're talking about 30 watts, 20 watts, even less depending on the application. So the technologies that these EPC contractors are proposing are technologies that are meant in the long term to reduce that overall energy savings that results in that maybe $500,000 of savings. So that's really the approach for this.
Am I understanding correctly from some of the feedback we received from Space and Facilities too, that it's a mechanism for financing some of the infrastructure that's needed at this time?
That is correct.
Okay.
So whatever the savings that, let's say, solar brings to the project, the district is able to offset that savings with needed repairs. There are a couple of rooftop units at the high school that maybe have 3 to 5 years left on their useful life, and being able to replace those, the cost for them is covered by the solar. Converting the boiler room at the fitness center or at the wrestling center from oil to natural gas. That cost to bring natural gas there is being absorbed by the savings. Now, you could obtain upgrades without having to do an energy performance contract, but then you would either have to outlay capital from capital reserve or tie in these items into a larger debt service project.
Right.
But there's definitely an energy performance contract provides the ability to get additional work done, but definitely at a higher cost, because there's a lot more hands in that mix in order to get there. It isn't just as clear as, here's X dollars, let me go out and change a couple of rooftop units. It's much cheaper to do it that way.
And then the interest rate, sorry, Meg, the interest rate for EPC is 3.8%.
Currently, they're ranging at
it's saying
3.8. All of
3.8.
the energy providers that provide us proposals used 4%, as that's what they envisioned it's going to be when we issue debt, probably 16 to 18 months from today. If we started the project today, we don't begin the project for at least 16 months.
Okay.
Because of SED approvals, then you have to go out and bid the project, so to speak, get the parts, get the pieces, and then they come and do the work. And then primarily, we would be doing a lot of this work over the summertime.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Lockhart, I'd like to learn more about it through the architect.
Is that what you're looking for
Yeah,
from us?
general
Just consensus to look into it?
To hear the two proposals at the next meeting.
Okay, yeah. I'm on board with that.
Yep.
Great.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, additional comments from residents.
Yes, we have one gentleman. Can you please state your name and address?
Hello, my name's Jerome Birdie. My address is 40 Lower Cross in Shoreham. Thank you very much. Beautiful presentations. I'm so happy that we moved here 5 years ago. I absolutely love this district. It's truly a special place. I unfortunately do have a concern regarding the football program that my son plays on here. I have a couple issues. The first one, communication. Throughout the season, there's been awful or no communication at all with things regarding like changes in practice plans, practice times, games, and scrimmages. I believe in the chain of command, and I've coached for many years, and I'm a teacher in another district. When you have a problem, you go to the source, call the coach, ask the coach what's going on. If you don't get a response from them, call the athletic director, try to get your concerns heard. If you don't get a response from the athletic director, bring it up to Mr. Poole, all the way up to the top. Give everybody an opportunity to communicate and do their jobs. On every attempt, almost every attempt to communicate with the coach, there's been no response one time, but there's been no response to me or many other parents. I've reached out to our new AD, Ms. Ferry, on 2 occasions and have not received a call back. Mr. Poole spoke with my wife on September 5th regarding communication issues and a few other issues as well. And their discussion led to that it would get better and that was unacceptable. As of now, it has not improved at all. Following that September 5th meeting, our coach at practice told athletes, "You're on varsity now. Your parents should not be calling, texting, or emailing me. It is embarrassing." There's no way to get in touch. No parent square for the head varsity coach or through that varsity team. We do have a team mom that gives us practice plans and dinner orders. My second issue is about numbers. In a recent article from the Riverhead News Review, our coach was interviewed. He quoted and said, "I don't know what the reason is personally why our numbers are low. I love football, and all these kids love playing football. This is something I agree with. I love football, and I see these kids love it too. I've been around the sport most of my life. It's hard not to look at some of these facts, though. There have been 13 student athletes that have come out for this team and have quit. Some were there for 1 to 2 days, others during the summer workouts, and some have just recently quit as of this past Monday. A large number of 9th graders that played middle school ball and all through youth league decided not to come out for the team to play, 8 players in total. There was no communication to the middle school players about any summer workouts, meetings, events, lifts, or anything team related. When information did come out, it was too late for most to become involved. I can't imagine where the program would be if we even retained half of those numbers, half of that 13 and half of the 8. Perhaps we'd actually have a JV team and they would be able to develop at a natural pace. My last concern is playing time, which I know is not guaranteed. I've coached this sport for 16 years in a rival district. We have had over 40-point differentials in many games. 4 games where the outcome was evident with so much time left. In those 4 games, many kids did not see the field. Not a play. How are we developing our younger athletes when they are learning that their job is to hold a pad or sit on the sideline in practice and then almost never get any playing time? My own son got 0 plays in 4 games, I apologize, in 3 games with a 40-point differential and 1 play, the very last play of a game, where we were losing by over 40 points. I do understand, I don't expect a crazy amount of time, but I do expect opportunities when the game is already decided for kids to develop. I would just like you to ask yourselves, why is this happening? I would like you to look into this, and I'd like you to consider my thoughts and points when preparing for next season. In a small district like us, when our numbers are this low, in my own personal opinion, we're at risk of dissolving that program when I watch 22 kids at practice, 9 through 12. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Brady.
We have one more speaker. Can you come up to the podium, please, to state your name and address for record?
Dan McGuire, Shoreham. I have 3 kids, 2 kids currently in school, 1 that graduated from Shoreham. I was actually not planning on saying anything tonight, but after looking at those test results, I felt like I was obligated to say something. My concern is, looking at those test results, knowing that this is the first year that they did the test, my larger concern, though, is the fact that a decision was made to go ahead with the new test, where many other districts went with the old test. So my request to the board or the district is that at the next meeting, if we can get a list of other districts who took the old test, who took the new test, what their mastery level was the year before, and what their mastery level was when this new test came out. I'm just hopeful that, you know, what comes to my mind when I look at those mastery levels results is I think of some of the top tier districts on Long Island. I'm thinking Jericho, I'm thinking Syosset, Half Hollow Hills, Comac, to see what their decision was. And then the other piece is to see how that decision came about. Was this a Board of Ed decision? Was it an administrative team decision? Was it a committee that was put together that put all the stakeholders together to make sure it was in the best interest of the kids? That's my concern. So with that in mind, the other piece that hit me tonight is looking at the iReady results. And I know it was mentioned that the iReady wasn't started until I believe it was this year in the middle school. So my question is then, with all these changes in the Regents exams, they're becoming very reading-based, based on comprehension, based on reading, somewhat to an extent more based on just the content. So my question is, what is the plan for the district to address the needs of the students with those who are struggling with reading, like need-based instruction? How are we addressing those needs for those kids so by the time they get to the high school, they're stronger readers, they comprehend better? It's not something that takes, you know, starts overnight, it's something that takes a period of time, but I think there really needs to be a solid plan in place because you need to address the testing concerns. And in order to address those testing concerns, you're going to have to seriously address those reading concerns. And we all know reading is pretty significant, right? So how do we go about doing that? I think if the current plan is teachers is printing up dittos without a solid program in place, that's probably not the approach we should be taking. It's something that should be looked at closely. So there's a lot of different moving pieces here.
Yeah, I would, thank you. I would recommend that you give a call to Ms. Wallbauer about our reading program to get a full understanding.
That's fine, that's fine, respectfully.
But I want to correct something. We do not have at all in any way, shape, or form a ditto-based approach to teaching reading or writing in the school district.
Yes.
I want to correct the record. And if you want to find out the real information about that, I would give Ms. Wallbauer a call or look back to a few meetings ago where she spent a lot of time going in depth into our science of reading analysis and an overview of our program. So you're more than welcome to give her a call and learn what's really happening in the district for K-5 reading.
Okay, so my point being is the iReady was just started in the middle school, right? When I was looking at the data. For math. So my point being is that these Regents exams, all these exams in New York State, actually New York State just put a grant out to put a science for reading program together to train teachers throughout New York State, that it's that significant. It's going to start impacting the test results even more.
You got to go back a few meetings and watch the video because we went very deeply
into
what
that's
we've
fine.
done. Yes.
Mr. Poole, don't we also have a detailed presentation on the MTSS plan and our response for tier 2 and tier 3?
Yes, we have a rich intervention system and a very, very, as a matter of fact, it isn't just the district's perspective that we have a strong reading program. We had an outside consultant spend a year with us last year because we wanted to be sure that it was an objective look at our program. So we have that as well. So we have a very strong reading program, a very strong intervention system. If you look at the results that Mr. Meinster presented, if you go to the prize at the end and look at the SAT scores for students in reading, writing in our district compared to the state, look at the graduation outcomes, the SATs, the ACTs, the college boards, the AP exams, the readings exams, you know, all those systems are in place and are functioning at a high level. But I would encourage you either to watch that video or to really call Mrs. Wallbauer, make an appointment, spend some time.
I'll take a look at it.
To really learn more about it.
Can we get an updated list on districts on Long Island who took the new exam versus districts that did not take the new exam and compare those results? I think that's, you know, considering there were so many concerns regarding the exam results, that is something that's probably important to people in the community also.
Yeah, we'll take that under advisement, and then we can advise the administration accordingly. Thanks, Mr. McGuire. Anybody else? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Henry, second. Jim? All in favor? 6-0. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.